Hey, everybody, welcome to the Recoop. I'm Cooper Daniels, and I'm a guy that knows a little about a lot. And today I am here with Charvel. He is the founder and the CEO of the Wayru Network. And I'm also here with Michael Cotton, everybody's favorite Algorand advocate. How are you doing, Michael? I'm just going to start with you. You good?
Good, Coop. How are you, mate?
I'm great. It's great to see you again. I feel
Likewise.
like we have a budding friendship here. I mean, we've spoken. This is probably our fourth time, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty good.
it feels like we're heading down the Step Brothers path, right? Like we're going to be
Yeah.
best friends any minute now.
Man, too bad you don't live closer. I would really force this. And Charvel, Charvel, how are you doing?
Hi. Hi,
Yeah,
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the invitation. Glad to be here. How are you guys doing?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm excited to
Awesome.
talk about the internet and decentralizing the internet and all the things that Wayru is doing. But before we dive into that, I feel like a lot of us already know Michael. We know him from Meld and AlgoMint, and he's been around the Algorand ecosystem forever. And of course, I'd love an introduction from you too, Michael, if you would like to share. But I think maybe there's more people out there that would be interested in you, Charvel, and like your journey and how you ended up here and at Algorand specifically.
Yeah, okay. So that can take hours, but let me shorten that up.
We have
Yeah.
time. We have at
So
least an hour. Yeah.
right. So well, I started I started my journey as an entrepreneur over 10 years ago. I started building around telecommunications around 2011. When I found out about the huge gap, the digital divide that is going on in emerging countries around the world. So I developed the first Wi-Fi marketing platform in Latin America back in 2012. I had a hotspot company as well in Ecuador. Then I went and I worked as a regional Wi-Fi marketing director for a multinational company where we connected over 50 million people in the region, and I managed teams in 6 countries. And when I was in that company, we were solving the problem more for the businesses that was trying to get data from their clients more than people actually being able to connect to the internet, because they had to leave their emails in every place they went. So it wasn't actually me fixing the problem that I was intended to fix when I first started in these endeavors. So then I built my previous company, which was focused on a collaborative Wi-Fi network, right, where people could do something similar to what we do on Wayru today. They could share their Wi-Fi, but this was aimed to convenience stores in very low-income communities, so that because that's where most people in low-income communities recharge their cell phones. So we went that route, and it went great until COVID hit. All these stores closed. So we went to Revenue Zero. I went to the biggest providers in the Latin American region and asked, hey, why don't we use this platform to try to decentralize a little bit more the internet, just provide services to people around the networks that we already have. And I'm quoting this. They said, we're not focused on connecting more people to the internet, but to upsell our existing clients because it's more profitable. So then it just clicked. I'm like, we have to build a new type of internet provider. So that's when I started rethinking how an internet provider works. And that's when I started drafting the white paper for Wayru over a year ago. I started drafting that probably February, March last year. And I launched the landing page on May last year. That got me selected to an accelerator called Parallel 18. I still didn't know which blockchain I was going to build this on, but I needed the support from an accelerator to get the right people on the team and to get this push start, right? So when I entered this accelerator, one of my co-founders joined, Paula Ceballos. She joined. She's my CCO. And then when we were there, we were looking for a chain, and we stumbled upon Algorand. Of course, we read a bunch of white papers, and then when we read what Sylvia was doing and how Algorand was working, it was just perfect for what we were trying to build, because we're trying to fix something in the real world that needs instant finality. It needs to be super secure, super fast, super decentralized, and of course with very, very low gas fees. Plus, we are super. We like taking care of the environment as much as we can. So being a carbon negative blockchain just closed the deal for us. When we decided on that, right before we decided on that, another co-founder joined, Edward Calderon, and we decided on Algorand. We started researching a little bit more about the ecosystem, and we found out about the Algorand Miami Accelerator, which is run by Rocker in Miami. So we applied. We got a couple of interviews with the guys at Rocker, with the guys, with some people from the Algorand Foundation, and with some people from Borderless Capital. And we got selected. We got selected, and this is how we actually really got our hands into the Algorand ecosystem. We started learning more about Algorand, meeting people from Algorand, understanding all the benefits that Algorand has to or provides for other projects like ourselves to build upon and make a real difference. So that's kind of who I am, where I come from. I studied actually business and architecture. I didn't study telecom engineering or I'm not a developer. I'm a self-taught developer. I know my ways here and there. I've been around the block a few times, but I don't need my tech team. That I leave that to my CTO. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and how we got into the Algorand ecosystem.
Fantastic. And let me just, I just want to ask one question before we move over to Michael. So when you went to these, these internet providers, right? And you're like, hey, like, why aren't we going to provide this for more people? And they're saying that they don't want to, so let me see if I understand this correctly. So their position is like, getting people connected to the internet isn't exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to sell more internet to the people that have money that want it. Is that what you said?
Because they already have covered the wealthier side of the population that can pay for whatever services they want to push upon yourselves. Because what they do, they tell you, hey, you need gigabyte speeds at your house to watch Netflix. And I'm like, what? That's a lie. You need 25 megabytes of speed to stream 4K. Like, that's just ridiculous. So they're just marketing, selling you higher and higher speeds, and then they try to push Netflix or Disney Plus or Paramount or whatever, right? Because that's the cool thing to have now, instead of trying to connect more people to the internet, because that has a longer cycle of getting your money back. And of course, there is a lot more risk there, because if you go into vulnerable communities, there's many risks, right, for an internet provider to go and put their money there. And if they have to renew their infrastructure or reinvest their profits on more infrastructure, that means shareholders get nothing at the end of the year, and that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
They need to buy that yacht, they need to spend that money. So they say, no, let's just focus on increasing our profits. And this is a true story. Like, I talked to the largest providers in Latin America. I talked directly to CEOs of the largest providers in Latin America. Don't ask me how I got those connections, but I just worked my way around it, and I got the calls. And I have them on my WhatsApp. Like, I can WhatsApp some of them, right? I usually ask them stuff. I used to ask them stuff when I was starting, so I could understand a little bit more their position on why they're doing the things the way they're doing. So I could, of course, get some insights. And yeah, that was their position, and that's fine. But the problem there is that 50% of the population is left behind. In Latin America, 50% of the homes don't have reliable ways of connecting to the internet. There's 80 million homes without fixed internet connections. Actually, there's less than 10% of quality fiber connections to the home in Latin America, which is terrible, right? And this is the problem that we are trying to solve today.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. And but before we do, I think maybe a good question for you, Michael, is how did you become affiliated with Wayru and get this advisor position? And what was it about Wayru that attracted you to it?
Yeah, thanks, COOP. And so AJ and myself from Mel Ventures, Not Geo Capital, who, if people don't know, are business partners and co-founders of both those companies. We also work on the Rocker Accelerator as mentors. And the last cohort, which is where Wayru came through, we were mentors in that program. The way we operate is generally just about 12 projects going through Rocker at a time. We'll get a copy of all the details we can on each of the 12 projects, with the intention of one combing through and going, okay, here's something really interesting we think we can, identify with and actually potentially bring value to. So we'll go down, we'll narrow that down to a list of generally 3 or 4 projects we think would be really well suited to us and to our skills. And then we'll go through and meet those projects and make sure that they also feel like we'll add value. I think the core piece is, with any of those sort of programs like Rocker, the intention is for these projects to come out the other side and feel better equipped and ready for what their game plan is with this product, and be really ready to take on the world as is the dream scenario. And Wayru was one of the ones that I was particularly interested in. I'd always watched these kind of models and always found them quite fascinating. And I also liked the combination of doing good while also, creating something interesting and commercial on blockchain tech. Charvel and the team were brilliant, so it made it a really sort of easy decision to come on board and help out, and thought the tokenomics and economic side was something that I could also really bring a lot of value for. So that's how how this started, and it's been great. It's been brilliant working with the guys.
Awesome. So so let's dive in a little bit here. So I think it was 10 years ago or something. The United Nations said that internet access is a human right. It should be like all of other essential things. And I think we've failed miserably at this. If it is truly a human right, what are the stats? Over a third of the world population doesn't have access to the internet, correct?
Yeah, almost 3 billion people in the world don't have access to the internet today. Around 1.5 billion people live in something considered internet poverty. There are recent researches about that and studies about how this works. But basically, that means that one person cannot access to the internet to getting at least 1 gigabyte of data on any given month, at less than 19 cents a day, at least 10 megabytes of speed. So there's 1.5 billion people in the world that cannot get that. That there's no way, they cannot afford that. And that's why I agree with you that we failed miserably in connecting all the people that need to be connected today. Just imagine what could have happened if by today everybody was online and working on technologies like the ones we're working on. Something that I usually tell people is like, everything that we do in technology makes half sense if we have half of the population disconnected. That's as far as we can go. If we're an Algorand on board everybody that could possibly be onboarded today, that's half of the population. There's another half that even if they wanted, they couldn't be onboarded, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, my channel is focused on cryptocurrency. The mass adoption of cryptocurrency in the world is necessary that people have access to the internet, or at least in the form that it is in now. But I was going to say, Michael, it looks like you had something that you wanted to add to that.
Oh, look, I think most of us take internet for granted, and I think it's just been such a commonplace in our world for so long that it kind of has become, no different to having fresh water available. And I don't think we quite liken it the same. But in reality, the internet is what gives people choices and opportunity, and access to so much value at what is non-existent cost. You look at what it's going to cost to actually access Wayru, and the ability to then access things like education services, access medical data, access even illness diagnosis, and all these kinds of things that become available, or access to resources to help with depression or help with other mental illnesses. Like, there's just this huge world that opens up the moment you get through this tiny paywall of internet, and actually having proximity to access the internet. It is life-changing if you think about how much we use it for and how much it impacts our lives. And to think that half the world is disconnected is crazy.
And if we did have a truly decentralized, free, open internet, it would also be a wonderful tool for people that live in countries with oppressive governments and things like that, access to real information. I mean, it's a very important thing. Is there anything that you would like? That was going to be my next question was, what is it about the internet that makes it so necessary? And I think Michael just touched on a bunch of that. But is there anything you'd like to add to that, Charvel?
Of course, I think that I couldn't be here talking to you today about what I have learned and accomplished and my vision of how a better future for everybody could happen if I didn't have the privilege of having access to the internet when I was younger. So there is so many kids and so many young adults that don't have access to this information to make the better decisions for their future. So I think that internet access can really change people's lives. It's not just about connecting with friends and being on top of the new cool trend. It's about possibilities, right? For people in vulnerable situations to be able to get out of those vulnerable situations, for people that need help in violent situations to be able to reach out to somebody somewhere else that might be able to make the difference for those people. And not having access to the internet is just leaving somebody in the dark. And I think that should stop. And we are on a mission to try to fix that.
Absolutely.
And this is, to add to that, Coop, too, this is why Algorand's also perfectly suited, because if you think about half the world can't access or afford internet, depending on which category you put people in, that they weren't going to be able to afford Ethereum fees. That wasn't a possibility. They weren't going to be doing Ethereum transactions to, go about their daily lives and go onto a new financial system. And this is where things like Algorand become particularly interesting, because it can help fill that same void.
Absolutely. Look, maybe we can talk about, just real quick, the internet in general, because I think people, like you said, they take it for granted, or maybe that was Michael that said that they take it for granted. Like, it's just like, oh, we have it and it's fine. And we've talked about how, there are so far too many people that don't have access to it. But it's also become more and more centralized as the internet. I mean, the internet started as this incredible decentralized thing. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden, Amazon controls it, or Microsoft too, I guess, is included in that, and Oracle. And there's a few big players, right, that control the internet at this point. So maybe this is a question for both of you. For anybody out there that doesn't quite have a grasp on the history of the internet, and not that we're going to go on forever, but how do you see the evolution of the internet and how it's gone, and how possibly Wayru is the solution to where we've gone off track?
Right. So it's very important to understand how the internet works first, right? So the internet is basically us accessing information that is hosted somewhere else, right? And the idea of the internet at the beginning was sharing information from one server in the US with one server in the UK, right? Being able to transfer information and share information from one place to another. But then, as you said, then big players came and they say, why don't we just put all the data in one place and just get everybody to connect through our place, and then we just put a paywall, right? And we charge for that. And that's where it went wrong. And then that's just the access layer, right? Like where the content is coming from. But then you get how the internet actually gets to your house. So for you to be able, for me to be able to connect to some content that is hosted in Amazon in a server in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. My local provider has to buy international bandwidth from either international carriers or big national carriers that buy in bulk from international carriers to distribute nationally. And then for example, for internet to come into Ecuador, we have a submarine fiber that comes into the country, and all the data comes through those submarine fibers, right? Some of them sometimes go through the boundaries to Colombia, but most of it comes directly through a submarine fiber. So there's other players there that own that submarine fiber, connecting the big servers in one place to everybody else in the world. So this is also a pain point that is very, very hard to decentralize. So what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to decentralize now, is the players within one country. There's 2 or 3 big players that manage most of the telecom sector. Everything is centralized. They're the ones selling to the small providers. They're the ones selling to the businesses and to the people. And if they decide that you can watch something, you might not be able to watch it because it's fully centralized and controlled mostly by governments as well. So our approach is to decentralize that access layer or that distribution layer within a country. Instead of relying on a local or national provider to provide this connectivity to a low-income community, these networks can be built based on the demand of that community, and then connect to a provider that brings the connectivity into the country so they can connect directly to a server overseas. So we are trying to fix a small part of a much bigger problem, right? Because the centralization in how internet infrastructures work, it's something huge. It's not just how I can share my home internet with you. It's what comes behind that, and how do I get internet to my house, and how those people that bring the connectivity to my house get it from somebody else. So there's so many barriers until it gets to us. The idea is that Wayru will buy internet in bulk and bring this connectivity directly to the final user in a decentralized way, because we won't be managing the distribution ourselves, at least not all of the time. We have 2 options, because of course there's some areas that are in such vulnerable situations that they won't have the means to deploy their own infrastructures. So we put the hotspot pools in place, because then we deploy infrastructures there, and people from other places in the world help chip in by buying pool tokens, so we can build those infrastructures, provide connectivity, and we get rewarded by the usage of that network, and we share the rewards with everybody involved. So I think that's how the internet works, and how we can try to fix a small part of that bigger problem.
Got it. So that makes a lot of sense. So it's not that you're not going to be able to, you're not trying to solve the problem, for example, of like possibly Russia being able to censor what gets into their internet or whatever, or you're not taking down AWS. You're saying, okay, that is a problem and it's unfortunate, but we're focusing on allowing people to access the internet. There's a lot of people out there that don't have access within Ecuador, for example. And so you're trying to figure that out. So that is the mission of Wayru. Actually, we for everybody out there, we're also running a Twitter giveaway, and there was 3 questions selected to win a prize. And I think one of those questions actually fits in right now. So OX Sir Dan, you have won 2 pool tokens. So congratulations on that. And that question is, does Wayru have plans to eventually move away from relying on ISPs to supply end-to-end internet solutions and move to a truly decentralized peer-to-peer network, completely cutting out centralized failure points?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's why it's one of the winners. So we are already trying to do that. That's why we are deploying the hotspot pools, because in the hotspot pools, it's an integral solution. We are a legal ISP in Ecuador today, and we are already applying to be legal ISPs in other countries in Latin America, so that we can buy internet in bulk, bring it to a certain point or a certain community, deploy hotspots, allow anybody to connect to that internet, or people to request a hotspot to be set up in their homes. We do that, they pay to use that every day, and we share those revenues. So we are already doing that. I think because this person might have read only about the Genesis devices, which is just a piece of it, because somebody that is overseas or in places where we don't have the coverage yet, they can still be part of this by going a little step further and building their own hotspot just by deploying this Genesis device with their centralized provider today. But the idea, of course, is to decentralize the internet service provider as a whole, right? We have a plan that is called a Federation of ISPs, because there are thousands of small ISPs around Latin America, and I'm talking about tens of thousands of small ISPs that have 50 clients, 100 clients, 80 clients, 200 clients, very, very, very small ISPs that they cannot compete against each other. So the idea in that scenario is for them to become part of Wayru's network, and then we can tokenize those infrastructures so we can help them increase the coverage and get more clients and get better solutions to more people around the areas that they are trying to reach. But everything will be under Wayru's umbrella. So people will be connected to a Wayru network, but now it's going to be think about this. Before it was called COOP Wi-Fi provider, right? So now COOP Wi-Fi provider stops being a COOP Wi-Fi provider. They just focus on managing the infrastructure, but the final user connects to a Wayru network, which is being provided by COOP Wi-Fi provider, right? So this is another way. And of course, we want communities to be empowered to build their own infrastructures also. So we are working with NGOs in Latin America and around the world. We have some conversations with the United Nations right now that we're going to be closing very soon. We have already some partnerships put in place, like WOCU, which is the World Council of Credit Unions, because they want to put the first rock in places that they need people to have connectivity, because of course their business is also being heard by people not having connectivity. For example, the credit unions around the world, they want to get people bankarized, and they can't because these people are not connected to the internet, and the easiest way to do it is through the internet. So so that's how we want to bring more connectivity to more people around the world. And this is how we stop relying on centralized internet providers. We built one from scratch, thinking in a collaborative and decentralized way since the beginning, which is what we have done from scratch. And you can take a look at that on the white paper. You'll see all the different types of decentralization that we have planned for the future, all the stages or steps towards decentralizing internet infrastructures, because this is not an easy task. This is not like, I have this single solution and this is going to solve everything. Like, there's steps that we need to take towards the decentralization or full decentralization of internet infrastructures.
Right. And real quick, what would the incentive for like the COOP internet provider to team up with Wayru?
Yeah. So are we talking about people getting a Genesis device, or what's going to happen in the future with the provider? Because it's basically the same.
Well, because you had mentioned, and maybe I'm off base here, but you were mentioning like there's a bunch of small ISPs, you know, and
right.
And so they're not competing, but in the end, you know, they could be underneath the Wayru umbrella and be more successful. I'm wondering what's the incentive for them to kind of do that, to join Wayru?
Right. So in any case, in any scenario, Wayru takes 20% commission of whatever happens in the network. That's the fee that Wayru takes to sustain the protocol. So it's going to be the same way as if you have a small or one hotspot in your house, or you have an internet provider and you put all your internet provider and turn that into Wayru, and then you have a swarm of hotspots around town. And there's two ways that we can do that. Either you only decentralize your hotspots and you convert those into Wayru, or you tokenize those as a pool, so people from the Wayru ecosystem can go and buy pools from that specific provider, and we still take the small fee after the expenses of those internet providers. So instead of them having to spend on more sales and having to spend money on marketing and visibility, it's going to be all under Wayru's umbrella. So we're going to be taking care of that side. That's why we take a piece of the revenue, and then they keep, of course, the rest. And we're going to be paying that in Wayru tokens. So when they turn into Wayru, they won't be getting the fiat money anymore. They will be getting paid in Wayru tokens, which they can put to work in the same ecosystem, or they can just go and sell those out in an exchange. And that's not a problem, because at the same time, the users need the token to access the network. So these people that get the rewards, if they need to sell those to pay for the maintenance of the network in their side, there's somebody on the other side needing those tokens to do various things. They can stake them in the platform. They can use them to access the internet. They can use that to enter a hotspot pool, not now, but in the future when we're on mainnet. And definitely when you get, and this is very important to understand, any hotspot that it's deployed under Wayru's network needs tokens to be activated. So that means that if you're a hotspot operator and you get a Genesis device, when we're on mainnet, you'll need to buy tokens, specific amount of tokens, stake them forever in your device, like a forever lock there, until you want to cease until you don't want to be a node operator anymore. So that's going to bring more value to your hotspot, and of course that strengthens the ecosystem as well.
Okay. So I'm realizing, we're 30 minutes into this, and I think it would be for the audience's benefit if we actually kind of break down how Wayru works. It's my bad that we haven't done that yet, I think. But let's. I'm interested in the internet and decentralizing the internet. So that's I started there. But that's okay. So exactly how does Wayru work?
Yeah. So right now we have a pre-sale for 2 products. So I'm going to explain each one of them so people understand what they're getting into. So first of all, we have the Genesis device. The Genesis device is a Wi-Fi router, proprietary Wi-Fi router from Wayru. We designed the router. We're building the router with an external factory, but we designed all the software and the operating system that runs on the device, which is the Wayru OS. So whenever you get your device, you're going to download an application, the hotspot operator application from Wayru. You're going to connect your device to the internet and to the electricity. You connect your device, you configure that device, you link that device to your account, and your device will broadcast a Wi-Fi network that anybody around or nearby can access, and will generate rewards for you for every given user that connects to your network. The way rewards work, we get rewards by uptime, and we also get rewards by the consumption that's generated on your hotspot. So by you having your device up and running all the time, you're getting a little bit of rewards. Even if it's like a couple cents a day, it doesn't matter. You're getting rewarded every day by having it up. And then when somebody uses it, we have a range of cost from 25 cents to 50 cents a gigabyte. So depending on what the user paid, you're going to be paid a percentage of of whatever they paid for that gigabyte. So for example, if they paid 50 cents for a gigabyte and they consume that gigabyte in your house, you will be rewarded 40 cents, and the protocol keeps the other 10 cents, which is the 20%. And the other product, which are the hotspot pools, right? What we do here, we deploy these hotspots in places that there is no connectivity, right? And to deploy a hotspot, you of course, when you're a Genesis device owner, you need to run with the cost of having the broadband, the electricity, setting up the device, and whatnot. On the hotspot pools, you take care of nothing. You're just participating, and we take care of everything. And the way it works there, for example, let's say we have $100 in revenue for a specific pool, right? We have a proportional cost to the revenue, because and why it's proportional, because the more revenue we get, that means we have to have more devices deployed, or we have to pay for more bandwidth. When you connect to the internet, that Wi-Fi, that's electricity. That's data in the form of electricity, and it's invisible wave coming to your phone. So that device, those waves are consuming electricity as well. So what we do in the pools, for every $100, around 40%, it's the cost to maintain that network. We take the 20%, and then the rest is for the pool token owner. So the larger the network, the less the cost to maintain it. So the more the reward the pool token holders will get, and we keep the same 20% in any situation. So it's steady for us, and then it could be more for the pool token holders if the network starts growing and growing and growing. So the best would be to get in early, of course, so you get all the benefits.
Got it. And so these hotspot pools that you're setting up, maybe break down a little bit more about how that's going to work. So let's say you're in Ecuador and you know that there's an area that could really use more internet connectivity. And so does this mean that Wayru's going in there and they're going to set up a bunch of Genesis devices, and all of those are going to be set up over there, spread out throughout the community, and then I'm going to hold some LP tokens or whatever the pool tokens, or whatever you're calling them.
Pool tokens. Hotspot pool tokens. Yeah.
The pool tokens. And then however many pool tokens, is it correct to say that I choose which pool to be part of, or
yes,
is that how it works? And then I'm going to get a proportion of the cost, right?
Of the profits after
the cost for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the way we do it, we can deploy networks in two ways, either by fiber or by unlicensed spectrum using radio antennas. So we deploy an infrastructure in an area, and we deploy hotspots in public areas, and we offer people to get connectivity to their homes. So we go and set up a device in somebody's home, and they use it every day because they don't have other connections. That would be their main internet source all day, every day. We set it up for free, because we need them to use it. That's all we need. That's why we have the pool tokens. So with the money with the pool tokens, we go and deploy these networks, and we sustain these networks for a little while until we start getting all these people joining the network. That's how it works in the hotspot pool. So we become an internet provider, bringing connectivity to homes, small businesses, and Wi-Fi on the go. So there's two types of Wi-Fi credits that you can get. Either Wi-Fi credits to get Wi-Fi on the go, so you can connect in any hotspot around town, or if you ask for services to your home, like you have, for example, internet to your home today, fixed internet, right? It will be the same. They just pay for a different type of Wi-Fi credit that provides them with steady connectivity in their home. That's how the deployment of the infrastructure works. And we maintain that with the revenue that we generate from that network, and the remaining we split with the hotspot pool token owners.
So you had mentioned earlier that a gigabyte would cost somebody about 25 cents to 50 cents a gigabyte,
yes.
right? And I'm imagining that is much cheaper than the going rate for a gigabyte.
Yes. Right now, the ongoing average rate in Latin America is about $3 per gigabyte. Okay. So we want to bring that down a lot. And the cost will depend if they buy like a daily package or if they buy a monthly package for the Wi-Fi credits. And then for fixed clients, the Wi-Fi credit is different because they will be paying a fixed connection. So they'll be paying a steady $15 a month, $20 a month, and they will be getting speeds from 50 megabytes and up.
Right. The other thing to add there, COOP, too, which I think is really interesting, is users can earn free internet which I think is particularly valuable. So the idea is if you can't afford internet, you can actually watch some ads through the Wayru network and actually earn free internet to gain access to the service.
Oh, that's cool. And then it would make sense for advertisers to target certain communities with something that actually they would use. And so there's a beneficial thing there. And that offers and people, to get free internet. It's not a big deal to, watch a couple ads. I'm sure people will take advantage of that.
Yeah, of course. They watch a couple of ads in the morning, and I don't know, 5 minutes watching ads in the morning, and then you're good to go all day to get connectivity anywhere in your community.
That's amazing. That's cool.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think this is probably a good time to ask the question, another winning question from our Twitter giveaway. And this is coming from @AJ Metaverse. Congratulations, you won a Airblock NFT. And that question is, how is Wayru Network routers different from Elon Musk's Starlink? And how do you plan to reach the most remote part of developing countries to include them in Web3? And then he invited a bunch of people to come talk about this. Yeah,
that's a great question, and I think it's a very interesting question. The two questions together, because we don't see Starlink as a competitor. We see Starlink as a possible partner, because Starlink is a global internet provider, but that doesn't mean that people in low-income communities are going to be able to afford having a Starlink connection. But what people can do, or what we can do, is get a Starlink connection to a low-income community and then distribute that using Wayru, so you get rewards to pay for that Starlink service. And that is something that we can also do to build pools in low-income communities or in rural communities that are very hard to access via radio or fiber. So we can team up with Starlink and deploy hundreds of communities around Latin America and make them sustainable thanks to our protocol and thanks to how Wayru can reward whoever's using or whoever's deploying these networks, which could be us or could be a Genesis device owner. They can just have their Starlink and have a Genesis device plugged into that and just share the connectivity around them with their Starlink antenna.
Right. And so, I think a natural competitor, or probably what a lot of people are thinking, is like, this sounds a lot like Helium, right? And or there's a lot of similarities, at least, between Wayru and Helium. Now, something that I have found, now I don't run a Helium node or anything like that, but the Helium infrastructure is very hard to get, and then B, where I live, there's no real financial incentive for me to do it, and so I guess I think I know the answer, because I think this idea of you guys running hotspot pools in these areas that do need it, and then I get a portion of that, I think that's a really cool idea, and it separates you from Helium. But I guess what are you thinking when you look at Helium and some of the benefits of what you're providing at Wayru?
I think if you're happy, I'll jump in on this one, Cooper. And I think in reality, one of the big issues I think Helium has faced is that the actual business model itself has struggled to maintain with the token price. And I'm a fan of Helium. I really love the concept, but we've seen recently with a lot of the reports, for example, in the $20 worth of rewards as a Helium operator, only about 1 cent of that is genuine revenue. And that's a real issue I think things like the Helium network face at the moment. And this is, I think, really where IoT devices and bringing access for IoT devices, the immediate business model for devices to be deployed in the millions globally is not quite the same, whereas internet and internet usage is a really obvious business model and a really obvious revenue point to bring that to the half the world that doesn't have access right now. And I think that's a really fundamental difference. And I think the pools are actually perfect for that exact reason you just described, which is, they're not going to be needed everywhere, not everywhere in the world right now. At the moment, the most obvious point is that 50% of the planet that doesn't have proper internet access. That is where the pool should be focused on being deployed. That's where the most value will be generated in multiple ways. So that's the brilliance of the pools, is you let Wayru do exactly what they do best, which is identify the best locations to deploy these devices, identify and maintain the devices in the best way possible, maintain the network in the best way possible, and you just get to support that through being a pool participant. And this also means it helps drive that genuine business model and economic model behind the Wayru token as well, because devices are being deployed in places that generate the most value, which is very key to giving the token value.
Right.
And I want to add something there, because something that Michael said is very true, because the problem also is that the consumption of IoT devices is so low that there is no actual revenue there's not enough revenue for 1 million hotspots deployed worldwide. I think what's like $6,000 a month with 1 million hotspots worldwide, that's no good. Well, we are aiming to have $6,000 of revenue with 300 fixed clients paying $20 a month, right? Yeah. So it's a lot. It's different. The model is amazing. It has for sure laid the grounds for decentralized infrastructures to actually be something that people believe in. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're eternally thankful for that job that they have done. But as Michael said, maybe the business model behind it is not quite the best. That's why they're moving for 5G in the United States. And 5G will only work in the United States, because anywhere else in the world is it's licensed. So it's not open for people to use the same band that they're using.
Right.
But yeah, I think those are probably the main reason. We connect people that consume a lot more bandwidth. They connect IoT devices.
Got it.
And look, it's a good point. I think Helium laid the ground and the foundations and ideated this decentralized infrastructure concept in many ways, and have been pioneers in that. And what's quite fascinating now is projects like Wayru are connecting more of the world, which would actually open up more IoT connection through connecting this half the planet that would never use IoT right now. So it's quite fascinating to see how those dynamics have played out as well.
Yeah. And I know I'm sure you're heavily involved in the tokenomics of the project, Michael. And speaking of maybe sustainability and where Helium's kind of gone off track, how do you see the tokenomics for Wayru positioning them for a long period of success in sustainability?
Yeah, look, it's and probably a little bit of this is summed up in where I think tokenomics need to be heading, and depending on what kind of tokenomics you want. Like, there is real instances where you just have a governance token, for example, and that's really quite a different model. In reality, Wayru is an economic model, but I think when you look at economic models, I actually don't think the traditional economic models were necessarily wrong. I think the difference is, and I think there's a lot when I talk about blockchain tech and distributed ledger tech, it was designed to bring transparency and accountability in a way that we haven't seen in the Web 2 world, where everything is opaque. And I think in reality, that is sort of the core difference between traditional economic models and what we'll now see in blockchain. And in the case of Wayru, what that really translates to is, the business actually building a genuine business model, genuine value being created through the use of the network, and tying that in terms of how the token actually functions in that network in a meaningful way that correlates with that. And I think that's the key of what we'll see. And I think the key difference we have is the token really acts as almost a marketing budget initially. It allows Wayru to use that token to help grow the network and help grow the business by rewarding people with, essentially a kind of ownership in the network to some degree. And that's really where, though, you have to have this balance. You can't have the marketing budget here and the value created here, and it never really crosses over. What you need to have happen is, over a period of time, these two pieces cross, where you've gone to the expense, you've given away value in the ecosystem to reward those that have participated, so you can grow the network, so eventually it becomes self-sustaining and really overtakes that expense. And that's really the key behind the Wayru tokenomics, is utilizing the Wayru token to help grow the network in a way that is almost traditional in terms of the modeling and expense, so that you can get the network to the point where it is fully self-sustaining. And Charvel, indicated about this earlier, which was initially when the networks go live, Wayru will support them with token rewards while they grow, and it's that same kind of idea. It's meant to be a temporary piece to help the network grow so it can become sustainable. The key piece there being that there has to be real revenue opportunity there and real value creation opportunity there for that to happen, which is, I think, where things like Helium have potentially struggled. And I'm a fan, so it's certainly not to sort of diss on Helium at all, but they've struggled with where the token price has gone and the value of that network and how much value is actually being created on the back of that. And hence these pivots to things like 5G, which I think is quite sensible for them to try and find additional options.
Right. So, and the idea is, and you've touched on this earlier, but it's the Wayru token, right? Wayru? Yeah. Wayru, the WRU. Yeah.
WRU.
And so everything in the ecosystem is going to be, if you want internet, you're going to have to pay with the Wayru token. And so it's a constant, you have to stake some Wayru to run a Genesis device, like you said, and you're going to be staking that amount of Wayru until you decide you no longer want to do that. Now, maybe this is a silly question, but when you start a Genesis device, if you take it offline, are you done? I mean,
something I'll add just quickly. So just because I think it's actually quite important.
Yeah.
If you are in Latin America, and the kind of person that we expect this network to connect a lot of people to, which is you don't even have internet access right now, you don't need to go and get the Wayru token to join the network. You can pay in local currency via like a local provider, and then that automates the Wayru transition to fuel your internet access.
Got it.
Only because I think it's a good thing to sort of take note of, because I think it's quite important for that particular user group. That's my dog.
Yeah.
Rolling around.
Yeah, he seems very happy back there. Yeah,
he's having a great time.
Yeah, great time. Loves the show. That's why I love it.
He had to get his head in. This was his moment. He wanted to be seen.
He's pumped for COOP and for Wayru. He's
that's an incredible point, because if you're trying to provide internet access to underserved areas, they're probably not holding a iPhone with an Algorand wallet and a bunch of algo to swap on Tiny Man for Wayru token. That's probably not, it probably hasn't gotten there yet. Makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And removing those barriers is key. And look, that's not to say that these same users in 5 years haven't transitioned to, because transition to using blockchain technology as their financial infrastructure. And this Wayru is actually a really, really interesting stepping stone, an immediate need that'll help them start to use and interact with blockchain tech. It's still going.
Yeah, it's escalating.
And I want to add something. Yeah, he's having the time of his life. Yeah. So I want to add something as well. The ecosystem that we are creating does not rely on DeFi transactions to be alive, right? Mm-hmm. We rely on people connecting to the internet. So in a bear market or in a crypto winter, right, like we call it now, it won't affect the performance of the network. It might affect the price because of speculation, if any, because the token is going to be used for accessing the network every day, regardless of what is happening on the crypto world, right? And this is something very important to keep in mind, because we are an internet service company using Algorand and blockchain technology to improve upon internet providers, right? To make a new kind of internet provider. That's how we call ourselves. Like, we are a new kind of internet service provider with distributed ownership. So we, as I said before, we empower these people to build their own internet infrastructures. And I think this could really make a change. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And you mentioned it, that the price of the Wayru token or the pool tokens, you wouldn't think are going to be so attached to speculation and hype, because it's almost like you're actually owning a real thing, especially with the pool tokens, of course. But this is internet. You're actually, there's a real like commodity that this is backed by on some level.
Right. Owning a pool token is like owning tokenized real estate.
Yeah.
When you own tokenized real estate, you earn from rentals after expenses. So that's the same thing. Here you earn from internet connections that we get on the network after the expenses. And you own a real infrastructure. So it's not real estate, but kind of, right?
Yeah. And then you're being rewarded with the token that has real utility, which as a currency.
That's the utility token. Yes, that's the main currency of the network. Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that in the white paper you break down how Wayru will further decentralize over time. Maybe give us like a quick version of how you see Wayru progressing through decentralization.
Right. So we have three layers that we call nodes. So we have the micronodes, which include the Genesis devices and some little things that I'm going to be telling you in a bit. That's
Okay.
what we're doing now. Then we have the block nodes, and the block nodes are community-wide or city-wide networks that people or entities will be able to deploy, and that's what we're doing with with the hotspot pools, right? Just building a network from scratch in an area and getting rewarded for that. But then we have something called the link nodes, and the link nodes are very interesting because we want to onboard larger providers, so that instead of we buying in bulk from them, they provide the connectivity in exchange of rewards as well. So we'll be rewarding them and onboarding them into this ecosystem as well, because we believe that in the future, it's not going to be us. It's going to be a bunch of decentralized networks around the world taking over centralized entities. And I think that's on the next question as well.
Yeah. The winning question.
Yeah, the winning question,
Yeah.
and then of course, bringing together all these small providers, right, to become this huge network that, on the face of for the user, is one big network that you get connected anywhere that you go, anywhere in the world. But behind the scenes, that there's tens of thousands of people building and operating this network every day. So I think that's how this can become more decentralized in the future.
Got it. Now, I'm gonna ask. Well, I'll ask the question because I feel like it's timely in the conversation. But I'm gonna ask something that's not really to do with Wayru, which we found out in this interview. But what do you see as a solution to how centralized, the infrastructure of the internet, these servers, these big databases that basically control everything? Is there a way out of that, or are we kind of stuck with these big guys kind of controlling all this?
Well, I think that there is a way out, and of course, Web3 solutions are going to be the ones bringing those big boys down. We were talking about before threefold. I believe
before
it's the name of the company. They are decentralizing another part of the internet, which is the servers, right? So basically, companies like that, based on, of course, on rewards and on Web3 tokenomics, they can decentralize the server side of the internet where the content is held. So, and I've seen this, I've seen people try this in the past. Only maybe hardware wasn't there yet. Only decentralized, maybe blockchain wasn't there yet for them to be able to onboard this. Maybe the cost of the blockchains that they were using weren't the correct ones. So I do think that is the next step. So we look in the future, we could partner with companies that do that, or that could be a next step in Wayru's evolution as well. Now getting every Genesis device to plug in a Wayru hard drive that will just will host content for them and for anybody in the network connecting to the internet. So we could be the ones providing the hosting for, I don't know, for Netflix and for Facebook and for all these big guys that need servers, that need their information around the world, so people can access that faster. But of course, I think blockchain technology can help solve that and many more things around decentralization of internet infrastructures and how the internet works overall.
Right. And
it's like bringing it back to its roots, right? It's like bringing internet back to what it was intended to be when it was founded back in the day.
Yeah.
And look, I think if I can add to that, Coop, I think, we kind of have a track record of this happening throughout the world across almost every vertical. Everything sort of starts out decentralized, and convenience drives at decentralization. And I think it's something that's quite hard to manage, and I think we need to be actually quite conscious of this in blockchain in general. I think the convenience of centralization, and we've seen it happen with Celsius and some of the pieces in these recent months, it is a real problem that we don't appreciate the issues. And I think we have 95% of the planet that I would say at the moment aren't ready for the responsibility of blockchain. And that's where that centralization piece will come back in to some degree around blockchain tech. And I think, it's going to take a time and work to change that. But I also think Wayru, is like one big puzzle piece that kind of brings a lot of these smaller decentralized pieces together. But, it's through transparency of blockchain that allows, I think, trust in those kind of structures to make a lot more sense. Because so much of the issues with major centralization is we really don't understand what's happening, and we feel very unequipped to know whether we can trust something or not. And that's where so much of that centralization becomes a problem. I think it's things like this that will hopefully be a demonstration point of what these big sort of conduits of these kind of technologies will do when they're actually transparent.
Absolutely. And yeah, you see it in our space where speculation is king and people start to, just making money is the only thing. And they're like, centralized, whatever, we don't care. Like, just make me money. And then that's obviously a risky thing. And that's not why this entire movement even began, right? That's not why Bitcoin, that's not why Satoshi came up with Bitcoin, because centralization is easier. Let's get into. Well, I was going to ask you one question. You mentioned, the obstacle of the hardware for a lot of these companies in the past. Now, what kind of obstacle do you see the Genesis devices being? Is it a big obstacle, or is the cost pretty low on the device, or can people configure their own device? Do they need your specific device?
That's a great question. That's what I was talking about earlier, that I can elaborate a little more on the micronodes, because we are starting with our own proprietary devices because of security reasons, because we need to have end-to-end solutions for the security. And just you getting any off-the-shelf device, we could have compatibility with devices. We already have compatibility with devices, off-the-shelf devices. You just have to make some configurations and it'll work, but the security is not the best. So what we're doing, we're working on a solution so that you can get an off-the-shelf device and you can flash the firmware. And when you flash it, that turns that device into a type of Genesis device. Let's not call it Genesis, let's call it a Wayru device, right? It just runs Wayru OS now, and we are working with different brands. We are using open source solutions for the firmware, so we can have compatibility with thousands and thousands of devices that already exist that you can order off Amazon, that can cost anywhere from $50 to $500, depending on what type of device that you want. Today, our devices are $200 for the pre-sale. They will go up later after the pre-sale ends. So now is probably the best time, because these are the first 1,000 version 1 of limited edition Wayru devices, right? Whatever comes later on is not the first 1,000 devices. So I got people buying them 3 by 3 because they want to have one where they want to set up one somewhere else, and they want to save one for later because they know somebody's going to crave having one of these. So yeah, we're working on solutions so we can onboard more people faster. But I believe that decentralization doesn't necessarily mean chaos. I think decentralization can be done in an orderly fashion. So that's why we are deploying the first networks ourselves as the hotspot pools, so then people can learn how to do that and then do that themselves in the future. And although right now we have worldwide shipping for the Genesis devices, the idea would be to be able to onboard more people by allowing them to just get any device that they might already have at their house. If it's compatible, they just flash the firmware, and they already have a Genesis device that they just need to buy. Well, not a Genesis device, a Wayru device, a Wayru OS running device that just needs tokens to start earning rewards for them in the network.
So, and you said it, you mentioned security. I think that people have this idea that, okay, wait, so we're going to be creating a Wi-Fi for people to tap into. Like, is this going to give them access to, to my stuff? And how secure is the Genesis device? So on security, I can't believe I haven't asked that yet.
Right. So there's a lot of wireless protocols put in place already for security wise. That's why you are able to have a Wi-Fi in your house, and you can even have a Wi-Fi without a password. And that doesn't mean somebody's going to get connected to your devices. What usually happens and how people get hacked is, for example, you go to a public place like a food court, right? And you need to access the free internet, and it says free Wi-Fi, and you just connect to that. That's probably somebody phishing information from their laptops, just creating a hotspot there. And in Wayru, we have security at the hardware and software level. So nobody that is connected to a device can access anybody else connected on the network or any part of the network that that device is connected to. And in the other side, when you are a Wayru user, you will have a mobile app that will connect you only to official Wayru devices that are connected to the network and that are activated to the network. So if there's like somebody trying to do phishing of information in a food court and it's called Wayru Wi-Fi, your application won't connect to that network. And if you try to connect and create, you have to get your account. So there's no possible way for them to have all your credentials and everybody's credentials, so they can just onboard them through that Wi-Fi network. So security wise, we get lots and lots of questions. And yeah, this is basically because sometimes it's very hard to understand how wireless internet works, how the Wi-Fi routers that we have at our home work. And yeah, I hope this answers their questions to anybody listening about the security. The Genesis device is super secure. The reason why we don't allow anybody to join with any device today is because of security. Until we have compatibility with devices with our firmware, we won't allow that to happen because of security. But we don't want to manage retail selling. The retail device selling retail devices is not our business model. Our business model is bringing people online. Right, so we don't want to focus on pushing devices, our devices to people. We're doing this to push start the network, and that's it. Like in the future, we will allow anybody to join with off-the-shelf devices if it's compatible with our firmware, and we will work hard to make sure that we have hundreds, if not thousands, of devices compatible with our firmware to be used.
Got it. All right. I think that this is a great time to ask our winning question. The winner of the Genesis device, which, like you said earlier, I mean, if you pay attention to Helium or even like Planet Watch or something, like these devices usually go very fast and become very hard to get. So I'm not trying to, whatever, sell. I mean, I guess I am. I don't know what I'm doing. All right. But the question is for you, and the winner is, and I apologize, but Nadizda and her, or his, or I don't know. It doesn't matter. Nadizda _CR. Okay. So the question is, I know that Wayru has huge plans for future development. How do you think, is it possible that in 5 to 10 years, Wayru, being the project of decentralized internet network, will successfully compete with and even win over telecom and broadcasting companies?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because this brings us back to the problem and how huge the problem is. So for us to overcome this problem, it's going to take tens of billions of dollars to be able to deploy infrastructure to connect everybody in the world. Like the problem is so massive that I think that is the reason why it's so easy to forget about it, because you can't quantify. So it's just like a gray cloud somewhere there that you'd rather just not look at, right? The problem is it's enormous. It's too big for a single company to fix the whole problem. So how I see the future is a bunch of decentralized internet network solutions with different approaches trying to fix the same problem, working in collaboration to connect everybody in the world. So the more companies that arise around the world trying to fix the problem that we are doing it, I'm pretty sure that the best option for any company doing this is to work in collaboration with similar companies, so that we can. I'm not thinking about taking over, because that sounds so centralized. As again, right? Like it's not about what we win; it's about how many people we can connect. So the more projects that come after Wayru, or that are today competing against Wayru, probably in different regions in the world, we see that we will be collaborating so we can strengthen those connectivities and those decentralized networks around the world, so we can overcome these centralized solutions that have put us in this horrible place to begin with.
Right. And this does actually bring us kind of full circle. And, we went on, we've got a longer one today. Thank you both for being patient and sticking around and, answering all the questions. But I guess a follow-up on that would be, where we started was with those meetings that you had with some of these guys, and them being like, "No, we're not worried about that." And you're thinking, "Wait a second, this is where the light bulb went off." Now, are these big guys, these big corporations, are they going to try to shut Wayru down? Are you the enemy to them, or do you think it's more complementary than that?
I think it's more complementary because most of these companies, they have established in areas where people can pay for higher pricing internet. We are focusing on connecting the unconnected. Remember, there is 1 out of 2 people alive that don't have a reliable way to connect to the internet. So we're not looking to go and fight against them and waste our marketing money on trying to get clients from other providers. We want to spend our funding in the best way possible to connect more people to the internet as we can. So yeah, I think that pretty much answers the question. I think we are complementary to the overall connectivity issue in the world, more than having a direct competition or a problem in the future. We are aiming clients that they are not aiming to get connected today.
All right. Well, it sounds like Michael's animals have woken up in his background, and I just had a parade walk into my place. So I think this is a wonderful place to end it, and I had a great time. I've learned a lot about Wayru. So everybody, awesome. If you're out there, if you find this compelling, make sure you check out the pre-sale while it's still open. How many more days until the pre-sale is complete?
It's closing September 9. It opened August 9 until September 9. That's the last day for people to be able to get on board with Wayru. Then we'll close it, and then we'll open the testnet in October. Probably we'll open some token pool sales in October as well, because the testnet is going to be a closed testnet only for Genesis device owners and hotspot pool owners, so we can get feedback from the community that is supporting us, right? And then we'll go on mainnet early next year.
Okay. So if you own a Genesis device, or if you own some of these pool tokens, you're going to be able to participate in testnet. And when you participate in testnet, are you earning actual rewards, or are you you're earning the Wayru token?
Yes, they will be earning tokens, and those will be airdropped when on mainnet to their accounts. So by them participating in the testnet, we are providing them some tokens as rewards, so that they don't have to buy the full amount on the public sale to get their devices up and running. By participating in the testnet, they'll get a portion of that, so they can lock those up in their hotspot and just get whatever's needed from whatever they got from the testnet rewards program that we'll have for node operators.
Evie. Okay. Yeah, just please. Okay. She wants a bag of chips, guys. All right. Hey. It's a sign that we've gone on a little long. Well, I really appreciate it. I thank you guys for joining me, and congratulations to all the winners. And thank you so much. And Michael, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, Michael. I'm sorry. I know I was talking more to Charvel today. I hope you don't feel neglected.
No. Look, that's what it was intended to. The spotlight, it should be on Wayru through this conversation. So I was just here to help where needed.
Okay, well, good. And then you're always invited back, both of you. So just let me know, and then
we'll do it again.
Okay.
Awesome. Right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cooper, for this space, and thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, and go to our official channels in Telegram and Discord to learn more about Wayru. And the pre-sale is open, Wayru.io. You'll find all the information you need to know about Wayru, token paper, white paper, and the direct links to the shop.